When I started teaching my infectious disease class online this semester, I wanted to come up with a way to teach without using PowerPoint slides. Peer-reviewed studies have shown that PowerPoint presentations can actually reduce comprehension and retention compared to a talk given without any slides at all. And you all know how boring PowerPoint can get very quickly. So I did some research and I developed some simple and inexpensive methods that enabled me to engage the students much more than I could using PowerPoints. I decided to make a series of videos to share what I learned with other teachers. In this first video, I'll show an overview of the techniques that I developed, and in future videos, I'll show you exactly how I achieved each effect. For lectures, I hung self-stick easel pads on a wall and built a custom stand to hold my computer, a second monitor, and a webcam. This allowed me to write on a board in front of my students, which is how I lecture in person. I also made a green screen out of a roller shade and hung it on the wall above my easel pads. The green screen allowed me to present slides and point to features on the slides with my hand or with a pointer. I also built a portable green screen that also allowed me to show slides during lecture. In lab, I set up a workstation equipped with a computer, a second monitor, an easel pad, a portable green screen, an overhead camera, 2 side cameras, a front-facing camera, and a microscope camera. The overhead camera allowed me to write on the easel pad, draw pictures, show experiments, and show slides. The side cameras and microscope camera allowed my students to see exactly what I was doing on the bench. The front-facing camera allowed me to talk directly to my students. By using these techniques, I was able to deliver online content in a more traditional way that directly engaged the students and held their attention. In my next video, I'll show you how I use self-stick easel pads to write on a wall during lecture. When I lecture face-to-face, I always use a whiteboard. I find that the slower pace encourages note-taking, it's more interactive, and I think the students learn more and remember more. When I started teaching online this semester, I still wanted to write on a board in front of my students, but I wasn't happy with the performance of conventional whiteboards or digital whiteboards that I tried. But then I tried these Post-it easel pads, which I never really used before. The sheets are 25 inches wide, 30 inches high, and when I hang 2 sheets together on a wall, I have a large surface area to write on. Here's a short video that shows what the students see while I'm lecturing on easel pads. One is the viral DNA. Now, this represents a donor cell that contains a chromosome. So this is an example of how Flagellum connect. Use that term host range to refer to plasmids. The head, the sheath, base plate, and tail fibers. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about what I said so far? See that easel pad lectures make it easy to write and draw while still talking directly to the students. I tried different markers and I found that these Sharpie flip chart markers work best because they lasted all semester, the colors were bright, and there was no odor. In my next video, I'll show you how to set up your webcam to get a perfect shot of your easel pads. In my last lecture, I showed you how to use easel pads in place of a whiteboard for online lecturing. To get a clear view of your easel pads, your webcam should be at about eye level. It's also helpful to raise your computer and to have a second monitor so you can see your students. To accommodate all these requirements, I built this custom-made computer stand, which I call the Educart. In this video, I'll show you how I built the Educart, and I'll also show some easy and inexpensive alternatives that you can use to achieve the same effect. The Educart consists of an open shelf unit made of wood, 15 inches wide, 15 inches deep, and 22 inches high. The shelves were mounted to an old lab stool base with casters so they could be moved around. I added a second monitor by attaching a strip of wood to the back of the shelves and then clamping the monitor to the strip. I ended up getting a new computer which didn't fit on the Educart, so I added a cantilever shelf to hold the computer. I positioned the Educart about 45 inches from the wall, and this gives a clear view of your easel pads from the webcam, and it also gives me plenty of space to walk around, easy access to my computer, and a clear view of the second monitor. Now, if you're not handy or if you don't have an old lab stool lying around, there are some easy, inexpensive alternatives that you can use to achieve the same effect. In this example, a computer and a second monitor were placed on boxes on a table, and a webcam connected to a gooseneck arm was clamped to a 6-foot 1x2 piece of lumber that was attached to a chair with a bar clamp. Also, there are many rolling computer stands like this one that are available that can easily be adapted for teaching in front of easel pads. In my next video, I'll show you how I built a green screen, which allows me to show slides during lecture. In my last video, I showed you how I set up my webcam and computer so that I could lecture on easel pads. But sometimes I want to show slides during lecture. I never used to show slides. I gave handouts instead. But with online teaching, I need to show a few slides during lecture. I don't show many slides, maybe 5 or so per lecture. And the slides that I show don't have fancy graphics or bullet points. Many of them don't even have any words at all. To show slides, I built a retractable green screen out of a roller shade. Let me show you how I did that. First, I took a vinyl window shade that I purchased at Home Depot. I opened it up and painted a large area green. And then I took the window shade brackets and mounted them to a strip of wood and installed the wood on the wall directly above my easel pads. To show a slide, I pull down the green screen and then load the slide as a virtual background on Zoom. This enables me to walk right in front of the slide, and it makes it really easy to explain the slide in detail. I could point to specific features on the slide or large areas of the slide much more easily than if I were using a computer cursor. When I show pictures, I become part of the image. In this picture, they're screening for Legionella in a water cooling tower on the roof of a Bronx hospital. Here's a picture of a flu vaccine production facility. I can even show videos. This is a model of the SARS coronavirus 2 spike protein. The green screen itself is made from a standard vinyl window shade. The one I purchased was 55 inches wide by 72 inches long. I painted it with bare, sparkling apple latex paint. The hardware is basic outside mount window shade hardware. And this is what the green screen looks like when it's installed on the wall above my easel pads. In my next video, I'll show you how I made a portable green screen that allows me to show slides during lecture without having to pull down the retractable green screen. In my last video, I showed you how I made a retractable green screen that allows me to show slides during lecture while still interacting with the students. But sometimes I want to show a single slide briefly in the middle of a lecture. And for this purpose, I built a portable green screen. The portable green screen is just a piece of cardboard painted green. When I want to show a slide, I upload my image as a virtual background on Zoom, and then instead of pulling down the retractable green screen, I just hold a portable green screen up to the webcam. So for example, if I'm discussing phage T4, I can quickly show a picture of the phage in the middle of lecture and even point out features with my finger. If I'm discussing 2UU, I can quickly show her picture in the middle of lecture. So the portable green screen gives me another way to show slides during lecture, and it comes in handy when I want to quickly illustrate a point that I'm discussing on the easel pad. In my next video, I'll show you how I made green screen pointers. A big advantage of a retractable green screen is that it allows me to point to features on a slide with my hand or with my finger. And this makes it much easier to explain slides than using a computer cursor. But sometimes I want to point to a feature on a slide without my arm or body blocking part of the slide. For this purpose, I made two green screen pointers. These are the green screen pointers. The large pointer is 36 inches long. It consists of a red bottle cap glued to a strip of wood painted green. The large green screen pointer is for use with a retractable green screen. The small green screen pointer is 15 inches long. It consists of a wood ball painted red attached to a section of wire coat hanger painted green, and the small green screen pointer is for use with the portable green screen. Let me show you how they work. This map shows the global incidence of tuberculosis, and using a green screen pointer, I can point to specific areas of the map without blocking the rest of the map with my arm or body. Similarly, I can use the green screen pointer to point to the flagella on this micrograph of Vibrio cholerae. The small green screen pointer works the same way, but I use the portable green screen and I can use the small green screen pointer to point to different features on the slide. That's penicillium. So these green screen pointers give me another tool for delivering online content using green screens, and they also add some variety to the lecture. In my next video, I'll show you how I set up a workstation to teach the laboratory portion of my infectious disease class. My infectious disease class also has a laboratory component. Aside from one interactive lab on viral evolution and one lab where the students gave oral presentations on COVID-19, I demonstrated all the experiments myself and had the students watch me live online. To make my students feel like they were in lab with me, I set up this workstation. It has a computer from which I run the Zoom session, a second monitor in front of me where I can see the students, an easel pad on the bench, a portable green screen, and 5 cameras. One camera is facing me, that's my cell phone. The second camera points down at the bench from the left, that's the built-in webcam on the computer. The third camera is connected to a microscope. The fourth camera is overhead and points directly down on the bench. And the fifth camera is positioned to the right and also points down on the bench. The overhead camera allowed me to write on the easel pad, demonstrate experiments, show slides. The left camera, the right camera, and the microscope camera allowed the students to see exactly what I was doing on the bench. I thought the live demonstrations in front of multiple camera angles made the labs very interesting for the students. In my next video, I'll tell you about different webcams that I tried, how I used my iPhone as a webcam, how I mounted cameras in different positions, and how to connect and use multiple cameras on Zoom. I used a total of 6 webcams to teach my online class. In this video, I'd like to tell you my experience with different webcams and how I mounted and connected them. I'll start with the webcam that I used for lecture. This was the Logitech Brio webcam. It's one of the most popular and highly rated webcams. I mounted the webcam to the top of my monitor using an adhesive mounting bracket. This is the mounting bracket. You attach your camera to this camera screw. This piece fits on a bracket which slides into this base, which has an adhesive pad on the bottom, very easy to attach. In lab, I set up 5 cameras. This first camera was a front-facing camera, and through this camera, I could talk directly to the students. This camera was my cell phone, which I simply placed on a shelf in front of the bench, but cell phone could also be mounted with one of these gooseneck mounts that are available. In order to use your cell phone as a webcam, you need an app and some software on your computer. I use this EpoCam web camera app, and I was able to use my cell phone as a webcam, and that worked out really well. The second camera was the built-in webcam on my computer. It pointed right down at the bench and gave the students a clear view of the bench in front of me. The third camera was connected to a microscope. For this purpose, I used a Amscope microscope camera. It has a cable with a USB connector on the end that connects right to your computer, and using this camera, the students could see exactly what I saw under the microscope. The fourth camera was mounted directly overhead and pointed down at the bench. This was an inexpensive HD ZU brand webcam that I mounted using a gooseneck camera mount. Using this camera, I could write on the easel pads, I could demonstrate experiments, and if I slipped the green screen on top of the bench, I could show slides. I figured out that you could write on slides if you put a piece of green paper on top of the green screen and then write on the paper. This was my favorite camera because it allowed me to write on the easel pad. I think this would be really useful if you were teaching chemistry or math where you have to write a lot of equations. The fifth camera was mounted on a gooseneck arm, and it pointed down on the bench from the right. This was an inexpensive Beatron brand camera, and using this camera, the students could get a clear view of the bench from the right. To connect multiple cameras, I needed to purchase a USB splitter because my computer has only 2 USB ports. This is the USB splitter mounted on a shelf above the computer. After you connect your cameras, you can select your camera on Zoom by clicking on the up arrow next to the video control button and selecting your camera here. There's even a keyboard shortcut to switch among the cameras. This, by the way, is where you load your slides. Well, I hope you enjoyed my videos and that you'll be able to use some of these techniques for your own online teaching. Thanks for watching.